Today we are diving into a really elegant solution for persistent 3D mapping. The paper is InfiniteVGGT, Visual Geometry Grounded Transformer for Endless Streams. It's by Shuailan, Yantai Yang, and colleagues from Shanghai Jiaotong University and Anyverse Dynamics.
Yeah, and if you work in any kind of continuous 3D system robotics, AR, anything like that, you know the central problem. Your streaming methods either crash because the memory just explodes.
The classic out-of-memory error.
Exactly. The KB cache just grows without bound.
Oh.
Or they suffer from this catastrophic geometric drift because they're trying to be too aggressive, compressing their history.
And InfiniteVGGT basically finds a way to break that trade-off. They've built this rolling memory architecture for a visual geometry transformer that it keeps a stable memory footprint. It doesn't matter how long the system runs.
And the really clever part, the innovation, is how they did it. It's a simple, training-free, and this is the most important part, attention-agnostic pruning strategy. It's all based on key cosine similarity.
Which lets them just throw out all the redundant data without giving up the speed you get from kernels like flash attention.
Right. And the result is what they call true infinite horizon streaming. They have a strictly bounded GPU footprint, and they've shown it works on sequences up to like 10,000 frames on their new Long3D Benchmark. It's a huge step for actually deploying these things in the real world.
Okay, let's unpack that core tension a bit more. 3D scene reconstruction is such a foundational problem. It's critical for everything from embodied AI to making augmented reality feel, persistent and accurate.
For sure. And we've moved on from the older, much slower methods like, structure from motion.
Right, SFM.
Yeah, and the field has gone to these end-to-end deep learning models like VGGT, Visual Geometry Grounded Transformers. And these batch models, they are masters of geometric fidelity. They can see all the data at once, exploit all those multi-view constraints.
But the catch is they need the full data batch up front,
which consumes a massive amount of GPU memory. They're fundamentally offline. You just can't use them for a live system, like a robot that needs to be mapping its environment for hours on end.
So that forces you into online streaming architectures for any real-time application. But that's where the two big failure modes you mentioned come into play.
Exactly. The first one is what we see in methods like Stream VGGT. It's this explicit history accumulation. You can think of it like a historian writing down every single detail of every single second.
So the key value cache for the transformer just grows linearly.
It's O of T. So if your system runs for a day, a week, that memory footprint is just guaranteed to cause an out-of-memory error. It's like a memory leak that's built into the design that's just not scalable.
So if you can't let the memory explode, the only other option has been to just crush it down.
Which is the second failure mode, implicit state compression. Models like CET3R or TTT3R, they take that history and compress it into, say, an RNN hidden state to guarantee the memory is bounded.
Okay, that sounds good on paper.
It does, but this is what the paper calls that Faustian bargain.
Yeah.
You get your bounded resources, sure, but you're throwing out so much critical historical context to do it.
Catastrophic forgetting.
Precisely. Your 3D map starts to visibly drift over time. It warps. The system basically loses its original frame of reference. So the whole mission becomes, how do you keep memory bounded without losing that crucial temporal consistency?
And that seems so hard because the data itself is just incredibly redundant, isn't it? A camera moving through a room is seeing the same wall, the same chair, over and over from slightly different angles.
The redundancy is staggering. They found that in these continuous camera paths, you get tokens in successive frames with a cosine similarity that's like higher than 0.95.
Wow.
Yeah, because the visual backbone, something like Dino, it's a semantic encoder. It cares what it's seeing, a wall, a desk, not the exact tiny viewpoint shift. So the features for that bit of wall just repeat over and over again, filling up the cache.
Okay, so if the tokens are nearly identical, this seems like an obvious question, but why couldn't older models like Stream VGGT just use their attention mechanism to figure out what's important and what's not, and then just throw the junk out?
That is the absolute heart of the problem they had to solve. It's a paradox. These systems are working at an immense scale that KV cache can balloon to millions of tokens really fast.
Right.
So to handle that scale online and keep your latency low, the transformer totally depends on these super optimized hardware kernels, specifically flash attention.
The thing that gives you the speed you need for streaming.
Yes, but here's the kicker. Flash attention gets its speed and its efficiency because it never explicitly materializes the full attention matrix.
The O of n squared matrix.
Exactly. That full matrix would just explode. Flash attention is clever and uses on-chip memory tricks to avoid ever building it.
So the tool you need to manage the massive scale,
They're the very thing that prevents you from intelligently shrinking it.
it handcuffs you. You can't ask the simple question, which old tokens did I pay the least attention to? Because you never even calculated those attention scores in the first place.
Precisely. Any smart pruning strategy that depends on attention scores would mean you have to compute that matrix, which would kill your performance and completely defeat the purpose of a low-latency streaming system. They needed a proxy for importance that was fast, simple, and totally independent of attention.
So they couldn't use attention weights. They had to pivot. What did they land on instead?
They shifted their focus entirely to key diversity. Their analysis showed something really fundamental. In the feature space, the query vectors from your current frame and the key vectors you've cached live in these distinct, almost orthogonal subspaces.
Okay.
And that stable separation means that similarity in the key space is a really reliable and, more importantly, a really cheap way to measure redundancy. If two keys are super similar, they're redundant. If they're mathematically diverse, they're probably geometrically valuable.
So the intuition is that seeing the same piece of a wall 50 times, that physical redundancy, translates directly to mathematical redundancy in the key space, high cosine similarity.
That's it. And to measure this, they came up with a very efficient metric. First, they established a reference vector, which they call the mean key. You can think of this as the average, most boring, most common feature they've seen. Maybe it represents a plain white wall or the floor texture.
The feature you absolutely do not need to keep a million copies of.
Exactly. Then the diversity score for any other key is just the negative cosine similarity between that key and the mean key. So if a key is really different from that boring average, if it represents a unique corner or a doorknob, its diversity score will be high and the system will know to keep it.
And that simple score is what powers the whole rolling memory system. It seems to be built on 3 core ideas, right? Let's start with the anchor, the part that never gets touched.
Right, the immutable anchor token. This is the foundation. The tokens that come from the very first input frame are designated as the global reference. This aligns with how the original VGGT architecture works.
So everything is measured relative to that starting point.
Yep. Since every single 3D prediction is tied to that original coordinate system, that anchor set is never, ever crooned. It's preserved completely to stop the whole map from drifting away over time.
It's like putting a permanent surveyor's stake in the ground at the very beginning.
That's a perfect analogy. Then the pruning itself is what they call granular retention. The diversity score is only applied to the mutable part of the cache, so everything from the second frame onwards. And critically, it's a top-EA selection on individual tokens. They aren't just deleting whole old frames.
They're picking out the most unique tokens, even if they're from a frame that's mostly redundant now.
Exactly. So you keep the important geometric features. And the last piece is the layer-wise adaptive budget allocation. They realize that not all layers of the transformer are created equal in terms of information.
How does that work?
Well, they found that diversity is really unevenly distributed. The shallow layers, which are doing more of the fine-grained spatial reasoning, tend to have really high diversity.
Okay.
But the deeper layers, where the features are becoming more about semantic understanding, that is a chair, they have much less geometric diversity.
So there's no point wasting your limited memory budget storing redundant information deep in the model.
That's the whole idea. InfiniteVGGT assigns a non-uniform storage budget to each layer. It's calculated using a softmax of the layer's average diversity score. So it dynamically pushes the GPU memory to where the information and the diversity actually are. It's just smart, feature-driven resource management. Now, you're going to claim infinite horizon performance. You really need a benchmark that can test that. And that was another huge contribution here. The existing tests were just too short.
So they built their own, the Long3D Benchmark. What kind of sequence lengths are we talking about here? How is it different?
This is really the first framework designed for rigorously testing continuous 3D geometry. It has 5 really challenging sequences, both indoor and outdoor, captured with a handheld scanner. And the lengths are, well, they range from 2,000 frames up to nearly 10,000. The academic building scene is 9,545 frames long.
Wow. Okay, you cannot fake geometric consistency over that kind of duration. That is a serious stress test.
It is. And the results make the need for their design crystal clear. On the older, shorter tests, like 300 to 500 frames, the baselines like VGGT and Stream VGGT just immediately hit OM errors. They crash. They can't even finish.
I can't even produce a result to compare against.
Right. But InfiniteVGGT runs smoothly and consistently maintains state-of-the-art accuracy compared to the other methods that can run, like CET3R and TTT3R.
And on Long3D, the ultimate test.
It excels. Across all those really long sequences, it dramatically outperforms the implicit compression methods, CUT3R and TTT3R, on almost all the critical metrics. Accuracy, normal consistency, chamfer distance. I mean, sure, a tiny bit of temporal drift is inevitable over thousands of frames.
Of course.
But InfiniteVGGT proves to be exceptionally robust. It limits that error propagation far, far better than any of the alternatives. It really does scale.
I love how a good paper proves its own claims. Let's get into the ablation studies, because that's where they really show why their design choices, like using key diversity, actually work.
Absolutely. And the most critical comparison was that head-to-head test. Pruning based on attention weights versus their cosine similarity method. Trying to use attention scores, they found, added 120 milliseconds of latency per frame.
120, that's a huge bottleneck for streaming.
A massive one.
Yeah.
And they used more memory, too, 17.3 gigabytes of peak memory. So the smarter solution was actually slower, more memory hungry, and just prohibitive for real-time use.
In their method.
Their cosine similarity-based approach.
Yeah.
It cut the inference time way down to just 0.168 seconds and reduced the peak memory. And here's the best part. It actually produced a more accurate reconstruction. The chamfer distance was better.
So it's not just faster and cheaper, it's actually a better proxy for geometric importance in this specific context.
It is. And they validated the other components too. The anchor frame mechanism. They showed that preserving that first frame completely is critical. It significantly prevents error accumulation and just improves the overall quality. You need that rigid reference point.
Makes sense.
And the layer-wise allocation also proved its worth. Dynamically allocating the memory budget based on measured diversity in each layer consistently improved the point cloud accuracy compared to just using a fixed uniform limit for every layer. It shows they're using that bounded memory as efficiently as possible.
This really feels like a significant architectural step forward. We've got InfiniteVGGT offering, unbounded operational time and long-term stability, and it does it in a training-free way. It resolves that core conflict between hardware speed and smart memory management.
The contribution is really twofold. You have the robust, diversity-aware rolling memory system itself, which is a brilliant piece of engineering, and then you have the introduction of the Long3D Benchmark, which is just indispensable. It finally gives the whole field a standardized way to measure infinite horizon performance.
So for you, the listener, if you're constantly balancing that need for low latency with the demand for long-term consistency in these complex systems, this really offers a clear path forward. It's a path to systems that can run effectively forever without crashing or drifting into oblivion.
Yeah, and the key insight is reframing redundancy. It's not a probabilistic property you find in an attention matrix. It's a geometric property you can measure directly and cheaply in the feature space.
So looking ahead, what's the next big challenge this work opens up?
Well, I think the immutable anchor token is brilliant for initial consistency. It nails everything down to frame one. But as a system runs for 10,000 frames, and maybe it revisits an area it saw 8,000 frames ago, is that initial frame still the optimal global reference?
That's a great question.
I think the next frontier might be integrating some form of drift correction or intelligent reweighting of that anchor, a system that could maybe update its global reference over time or refine its coordinates instead of being tied forever to that one single starting point. That's a really long-term challenge that this amazing work now makes it possible to think about.